All right, everyone. So I'm here with Senator Darren Bailey for governor. I had the pleasure of meeting Darren for the first time on a boat cruise with my good friend John Anthony. I really enjoyed who he is as a person, his vision for the state. And unfortunately, he couldn't be with us today at our event. He has a fundraiser he's attending that he was committed to previously. So instead, we decided to make this video so he could get some information and get his message out to our audience. So thanks for being here with us, Darren.
Well, thank you, Nick, for what you're doing, and thank you everyone who is attending, because of this. What's taking place in this room tonight is exactly what needs to be taking place. We need to prepare for this, because we need to be prepared to have many more meetings like this in the days to come. Otherwise, life as we know it in Illinois is going to slip away from us, and we're allowing it if we don't stand up and do something. So, Nick, I really appreciate your passion and you just simply being available to do what you're doing tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate you. And what I really enjoyed was getting to know who you are as a person. I don't have political aspirations. Who knows? Maybe someday that'll change. Maybe I'll run for something when the day comes that people are asking me to, because I do believe that it needs to be something that is not in the interest of a self-serving goal. If I were ever going to step up, it would be because I believe in something like I believe in this right now, which is mainly fighting for my children, fighting for my neighbors, fighting for my friends and their families. And just, I guess, give everybody real quick before we get into the questions, a little bit of a background on who you are.
Well, thank you. Now, be careful, because I have no political aspirations. I don't want to be doing this. As we just got through celebrating my daughter Abigail's 28th birthday party, and next week we got to be home again on Sunday to celebrate another granddaughter's birthday, and our three sons are got the farm thing going on, and I'm missing out on that, but I believe we're working for something much more important. I'm working for their future, so that when our grandchildren, several more years, get out of high school and move on, I want them to be able to flourish here in Illinois. So yeah, I'm a lifelong farmer. Married to the woman of my dreams for 35 years. We dated all through high school, and got married after 2 years of went to community college, and she studied dental hygiene, and I studied ag production. Came back to the farm. We got married. She started a small business. I served for 17 years on our local school board, 12 of those as board president. We did some pretty amazing things. So I have a wealth of knowledge, with the woes of public school. And anyway, got off the school board. All that time, Cindy she had small business as well. I get off the school board, and then God opens up the door for us to start a private education, Christian education. So right now, Cindy and I also have Full Armor Christian Academy, almost 300 students and 2 campuses. So like I said, we're very, very well versed on the laws and the rules of Illinois in regards to education. Our daughter Abby helps Cindy administer that when she's gone while we're on this journey. So at 2017, my state representative voted for the 2018 budget. And the only thing that budget offered was a 32% tax increase for all of us, and no reforms, no changes, nothing. So I got a little too vocal. To your point, I had no idea where this was going, but I started researching, and literally Facebook. I started sharing what I was learning, and that influence exponentially grew to the point where people began to ask us to maybe represent them. So I shrugged that off for quite some time, but due to the godly advice of my wife and others, we decided to pursue this journey. I agreed to term limit myself for 10 years. I don't participate in the pension or the insurance or anything else. And I thought I'd just serve for 10 years and come back to the farm. And well, since then, and last year, our state senator stepped down. He said he was going to step down. So the people in our district came and said, "Hey, service as your representative or as senator." And during all that, I had sued Governor Pritzker and won. I stood up against the mandates in the House, against the mask rule change. I stood against that, and I was standing up against many of the egregious bills, such as even SB 818, which was heard in the spring of 2019. So anyway, that's my journey. No ladder climbing, no grandstanding, simply doing what an American should be doing. And as I researched the field, my wife and I last August, we began to kind of understand our influence and this people's appreciation across the state as to the purpose of us standing. Uh, had a conversation with many people who I thought might run for governor, hoping that I could get behind them. And I just didn't feel the passion of someone who would stand up and represent the change that needs to take place. So that's why we're here. And like I said, we're just doing the American thing, trying to save life as we know it ultimately for our grandchildren. And then, I think if we save this state in 2022, I think that we've got the chance of getting our nation back on track. So that's my story.
We got a lot of work to do, especially here in the state of Illinois.
Yes, we do.
So I guess to get into some of the questions I have for you, what is your overall take on the governor's mask mandates in schools?
So really this exact same thing as, what I thought about the shutdowns back in last April. I mean, I want to remind everyone, and I mentioned that at your meeting a few weeks ago that you invited us to, this lawsuit that was won on July 2nd of 2020, it has not been dismissed and it has not been overturned. It's really just kind of sitting there. And, I think it's a matter of people having backbone to do the right thing. Life in my area has been opened up, since then. I know up in your area, it's, with your businesses, it's struggled a little bit different because what Governor Pritzker did, he busted that down to the local level. The city of Chicago came out and passed ordinances. Many counties came out and passed ordinances. We found the importance of a Republican state's attorney and a Republican sheriff, because if you got those two people, business is going to stay open. Nobody's going to bother you. But I know in some of the areas in the northeast corner of the state, it's a little bit different. But regarding this situation with this masking and his over intrusion with schools, it's unconstitutional, illegal. Nothing changes. So let me back up just a little bit. Last Wednesday, Representative Blaine Wellhauer and myself were the only two legislators that attended the Illinois State Board of Education monthly meeting. First time in over a year that they actually met in person in Springfield and actually, attempted to do their job. There were many other people there. It was a room full of wonderful patriots. So Blaine and I were the first two people that were graciously honored to speak since we were elected officials. And we laid it out very succinctly that they did not have the authority to do what they want to do or are trying to do. And interestingly enough, HB 2789, the bill that passed out of the House, came to the Senate, didn't make it out of committee. That bill is needed for them to do what they are trying to do, and we pointed that out. Now, here's the interesting part, and I think we're going to hear more about this this coming week and the week after. Finally, on Friday, JCAR, the Joint Committee of Administrative Rules, finally they spoke up and they said, "ISB, we're not seeing where you have any authority to do what you're doing." So thank goodness somebody's finally realizing, instead of just sitting back and obeying, complying with all this nonsense. Simply put, I will stand by these words. Illinois State Board of Education has absolutely no authority to do what they're doing. Governor Pritzker himself is not really, he's sitting back and saying, well, it's ISB doing it. Well, he's ordering ISB. The governor handpicks the State Board of Education members. I don't know if many people realize that or not. So we were doing well before the governor's mandates. Obviously, of the 860 plus school districts in the state, we were well over 500 who said they were going to be mask optional. Once he came out with this, we're busted to back down. There are about 80 schools across the district who have stood and said, no, we're going to ride this out. I want to point out Timothy Christian Academy, one of the very first examples. That was a dog and pony show, 100%. Speaker Chris Welch's children attend that school. So I think they simply made a picture perfect example of, hey, if you want to buck and stand up, okay. And then they got their letters from the state, and then Timothy Christian said, we're sorry, we'll back off. And the state said, okay, everything's good. We'll give you everything back. So that was a show, is all that was. Schools need to stand up if they so desire, and be mask optional.
So that was a show to set an example for other schools that think that they may be able to try and defy the governor's orders. Um, so you answered a few of my questions. So just to kind of dumb this down for everyone, and I understand it only because I've been listening and studying and talking with Tom DeVore, listening to you speak. I've been digging in because my initial reaction, like most parents, was I was mad. I thought, well, we should just defy this. We should go crazy. Let's inundate the school board and superintendent. But then I'm realizing from watching people on a national level attack their school board, it's really not getting them anywhere, especially if people on the school board love this authority and this power. I think it only makes it harder for them to get through this barrier. And so I started digging into the legality side of it. And so House Bill 2789 had laced into it the authority that the governor and ISB are trying to wield currently, absent of its approval, absent of it passing, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, now, other than that, though, there are administrative codes that they're using as a loophole to hold some accountability over these school districts that defy the orders. But if I understand those administrative codes correctly, those speak more to things like air conditioning, rat infestation. Isn't that more for like the structural elements of a school being unsafe?
That is correct. And if you listen to the House debate, and if you listen to the Senate committee debate, in the debate, the sponsors lay the argument out perfectly well. As Senator Belt says, the only reason that 2789 is needed is that in order of when the governor issues a health pandemic, and only then the health department gets to come in and and set the rules. That's in a nutshell what he's saying. And that's exactly what ISB, that's the reason that they are giving for these mask mandates. I mean, Dr. Ayala herself, when before we began testimony, is interesting. She said, we're not here to talk or meet about the mask mandates. Yet she had about a 10-minute presentation prepared that she read. And that whole presentation is, they simply said, because of this health pandemic, we believe that masks will work, and we know that we need to protect children and they need to wear masks. So to that point, that is correct.
So they try to push this bill through to give them the authority they claim they have now, or at least they're given the appearance of the authority. It didn't make it through. So then Pritzker, I believe, said, hey, you guys make your decisions on a local level. I think it was in July, he told local school districts to meet and decide how they want to handle masking in school. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
And so then parents and school boards and superintendents sat down and they looked at everything and they made those decisions on a local level. So right here in my district, I think it was voted 6-0 mask optional. And in many other districts, it was voted very quickly mask optional by virtue of taking a survey of the parents' wishes, looking at the data, looking at the science. And so when Pritzker saw that that wasn't going his way, he jumped on the airwaves and said, I'm mandating masks statewide. Am I onto something there?
That is exactly right. That's how that happened.
So what do you think his reasoning was behind that shift?
We can't really understand this. We look and you scratch your heads and you're asking yourself, why is the government of the United States, why is the government of the state of Illinois doing what it's doing? In 3 years being involved as a state legislator, I mean, power blinds. We've heard that. I mean, we've heard that, and that's the only explanation that I can have. And I mean, I know that's way too elementary, but this power that these people have, when I have conversations one-on-one with these Chicago area state representatives, it's like you and I talking. It seems like we all agree on the same thing. Illinois Farm Bureau has an Adopt a Legislator program, and it's a wonderful program. And the main purpose is to get people like myself up in your areas, and to get people up in the downtown Chicago, the representatives and senators there, down into my areas, get them in the rural areas. When I started as 3 years ago, only about half of my counties were participating in this, and now 100% of the counties are participating in it. And it's interesting because twice a year, the representatives and senators from Chicagoland area come down to Southeast Illinois. Interestingly enough, Farm Bureau usually tries to kind of distance and keep the legislators separate, so it doesn't get too much like it just doesn't get political. Interestingly enough, every one of our counties, when the Chicago area state representatives and senators come down, they want Cindy and I, my wife Cindy and I, to be at those meetings. We were in those meetings last year, August, September, and October, right in the midst of this, pandemic. These legislators were bringing their parents, their grandparents, their brothers, sisters, fiancés. They all came down and were on the farms. And the only time they wanted to wear a mask is when they had to stand up and take a public picture. I mean, I've seen the hypocrisy and nonsense. And I sat and I asked myself why? So the only thing I can honestly say is just a blinded power, because there is no science. As a state representative and now a senator for over a year now, we have asked when we get on the phone with Dr. Ziki about, when they say we have this proof, send it to us. And the Democrats alike are just as frustrated. We have never received anything from these people.
Well, I can tell you as a father of 3 young children, what's frustrating people, I believe, is the goalpost just keeps moving.
Yes.
It's like they're playing with our emotions now. And to what end? That's, I think, what everyone really wants to understand. This is about the narrow issue of masking children in school. I believe it should be a matter of choice. If you want to mask your child, you want to vaccinate your child because that makes you feel safe, and you want to make that decision for yourself and for your family, go right ahead. However, if someone else feels differently and they want to send their child to school unmasked, unvaccinated, that should also be their choice. That's how America functions, from my understanding, from a freedom perspective, right? That
Right.
Our founding fathers would be probably laughing at us and crying at the same time, wouldn't they?
Right. That's exactly right. So, we've got options, and I can tell you this, Full Armor Christian Academy last year, 2 campuses, parents signed off. We didn't wear masks last year, not once. As a matter of fact, when a young person took ill, we took temperatures every day. When they took ill, they stayed home, much like they would with the flu. They came back when they felt better, took temperatures. As long as their temperature was gone, they came in. We had less than 10 cases. I can tell you that throughout the state, there were many schools. There were some schools last year, public schools, that really did the same thing, just didn't tell anybody, just flirted under the radar, didn't wear masks. Everything was good. You've always got that one person that throws the radar up. But this is, we're to the point now where we have simply, we can still do that. I've had much to what your point earlier, I've had superintendents and board members across the state in the last week call me, some frustrated, hey, you're telling these people to come to our meetings, quit it. And I love that, because this is a public meeting with a public body, and you're telling me you don't want people at your meeting. I'm telling you from my 17 years of experience that if you get your people and have people at your meeting and they are educated and informed, you're going to have a much stronger school district. So all those conversations, they ended well, but that is the point. If you're sitting out there and you're having a school district that's going to be meeting soon, most of them have probably made their decisions because school has started or is starting soon. But just be congenial, be polite with these people. They're elected officials. Their backs against the wall. Here's what we've got. We've got lawyers. There's every school has a lawyer, and these lawyers are affiliated with a education law firm. And interestingly enough, there's only about 4 or 5 of these educational law firms, that kind of in the area of the state of Illinois. So they're all affiliated, kind of tightly knit. So then you've got these lawyers telling the superintendent, the best advice. You've got the superintendent here that's making a living, concerned with his future, and his back's up against the wall because he doesn't know if he's got the support or backing of the school board. So we've got a whole lot of political elements. Interestingly enough, one of the largest contributing lobbying groups to the Democrat Party, guess what? Lawyers. Tom can tell you that, the trial lawyers. So that's what we've got. Obviously, ultimately, we've got a lot of money that backs this, but bottom line is, the school board, the elected school board, they have the decision. They can do whatever they want to do. The lawyers, the superintendent have given their advice, but the school board should be representing the will and the desires of you, the parent. So talk to your school board members one-on-one. That's usually best. Give them a call. Try to try to feel them out, try to get them prepared for when they go to that meeting, that what they're going to say. Sometimes they'll change. I've seen it, I've witnessed it, but more often than not, they're there to serve. They're not just there to serve when they show up at the school board meeting. You can feel free to. I field calls every day in my offices as state senator. They can do the same as a school board member. And
Maybe I'm naive, but a school
Yeah.
board meets, they have all this, they put a lot of time and effort into due diligence with parents based on the governor's suggestion to make a decision. And this is after House Bill 2789 stalls in the Senate, right?
Right,
Well, they made decisions. They voted 6-0
right.
mask optional. The
Right.
governor mandated that everyone wear a mask in school. I guess I'm just kind of wondering, how is that formally reversed? Does that trump every decision that was made, or does the school board have to meet again and vote that they're going to make masks mandatory?
Well, that's what they're doing. It's fair. That's exactly what they're doing, because now, if they will be, many of these schools have been receiving letters. Tom will probably be talking about that. These letters come in very many different forms. Some are requesting a compliance in 24 hours. Some are given 60 days. Some are given 90 days. My recommendation and my advice is, school board, set out there and wait it out. I think it would be amazing. Governor Pritzker is not going to withhold any money. No one is going to revoke any charters, and I don't believe they'll even infringe on the IHSA. Interestingly enough, many schools across the state are even beginning to cancel sports on their own because of the fear factor. So we simply need to stand up against this nonsense. And
Move
I
out of the
think
sun here.
JCAR is going. Yeah,
Sun's chasing me.
yeah, that's that time of day. I think JCAR is going to help take care of this situation with ISB. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to find out. I think a lot of these school boards who have rescinded their decisions and changed, there's going to be a massive turnover in 2 years with our school boards, because I think a lot of people are going to be embarrassed when they realize they waffled so easily for no reason.
So the one thing that I didn't see, and I think this is really where I became unglued, because I knew this was coming. I heard the governor was going to come on, make this announcement after all these parents thought they had a victory, and they were going to go back to school mask optional. We started to hear the murmur that he was going to come on the airwaves and mandate masks. So I was kind of sitting there waiting for that moment. And what I was hoping to hear was the science and the reasoning behind why we're now masking children. And I was also hoping to hear that there would be a metric or a goal or a place we needed to get to for masking to become optional. But guess what? We didn't hear any of that, did we? There was no explanation, and then there was no goal. So all throughout this, there were at least some of that was mixed in. We're going to go to stage 4 and then 5, and he was laying out a strategy based on science and metrics, but now all that's out the window. It's just a mandate with no explanation. So I guess that's the thing I'm going to keep coming back to, because I think that's really the thing that everyone's trying to understand is, what is this really about? In your heart, what do you believe this is truly about?
I believe it's all about money. It boils down to money and power. And because the perception is only one thing, that there's not going to be any relief. There's not going to be an option to go back to mask optional until there is a cure. So isn't it interesting? We've been battling cancer for so many years and can't find the cure, but now all of a sudden we perceive that we have a cure for COVID-19. And oh, by the way, we're finding out you might have to get booster shots for the rest of your life every 6 months. We're finding out that there are a lot of health problems are following a lot of these vaccines. So I want to make sure that by saying that, I am not anti-mask and I am not anti-vaccine. I'm actually pro-freedom. As an Illinois state senator, I've helped a lot of people in my district get the vaccines who were scared and worried and that they couldn't get them in a particular day. And we actually loaded people up and took them to get their vaccines. If that's what you want, get it. But not in this free land should the government ever be able to tell people your business, your church, your school is going to have to close. Not even the revocation of the money or the charter. That should never, ever happen. And it sure as heck should never happen that you've got to tell me that I must wear a mask. That's nonsense. And we have got to stand up against that.
So it feels like to me that the vaccination may not be mandated on my children are 4, 6, and 8 years old. So once they're able to roll out a vaccination for children of that age, my hunch is they're going to say, we're not going to require you vaccinate your children, But if you do not, they're not going to become unmasked. So essentially, they're leveraging freedom. They're leveraging their ability to be able to breathe fresh air and read each other's body language and microfacial expressions and all this. That'll be in exchange for the vaccination. That's where I believe it's heading. Because otherwise, what would be the explanation?
Well, you may be right, and I guess I hope it's that simple. But I'm afraid there's going to be vaccine mandates coming out, because we already have that in congregate settings. I'm receiving calls every day about healthcare providers, Department of Corrections and their prisons. They're mandated. They're going to have to be vaccinated. Now, it's interesting that this date is pushed all the way out to there's two dates. There's an October 4th and there's an October 15th. I find it interesting that those dates are pushed out for a little over a month, because I think that's for a reason. It's going to give Pritzker a time to gauge how many people are going to go and get these vaccines, how many people are going to. I'm recommending people don't quit your jobs. You stand firm. You go get a medical or a religious exemption, or both if you can. You present them to your employer. You make them fire you, and you make them acknowledge in writing that they rejected both of those exemptions. That's going to be very important for the future. So I think we're going to see a time here. It's going to be interesting to watch. But that's what we've got going on right now. We've got students who are ready to graduate, nursing students. They are not allowed to take the boards unless they are vaccinated. I mean, something is very, very wrong here. So again, the bottom line is freedom's not free. People ask, what should we do? And I mean, it's a tough choice, and you have to make a decision whether or not you're going to be vaccinated or not. And there's consequences with that. I know for a fact there's not a lot of people lined up to take these jobs, either as school teachers, prison workers, healthcare workers. I know that you're going to have to make a decision with your school boards, with your children. Freedom's not free. You might have to pull your children out of public school if you don't want them wearing a mask, and you might have to seek alternative form of education, homeschooling, paying extra for for private education. I can tell you this: as governor, I will be working tirelessly to work for the voucher system. I believe that we have to improve. There's lots of ways to improve our public school. Private education can never replace public education. And for those of us and who can pull our children out and homeschool them and send them to private school, that's great. But I can tell you the vast majority of the parents out there can't afford that. They just can't. That doesn't work for them. So we have got to go in and clean up public education first and foremost. And we have also got to go in and after 2023 and begin some sort of a voucher system and offer school choice and make sure that this never happens again. Because I want to tell you something. Clay County, where Full Armor Christian Academy exists, there's 3 other schools down here. They're all standing strong and they're mask optional. Competition is good. It makes the system better.
Our children attend a Catholic school and they're mandating the mask, which I found interesting. So really, even there's no pathway to mask optional. And the archdiocese told us that they were following the governor's orders. So we flew our family down to Florida because we have another home in Florida. And I thought, well, we'll go down there and we'll enroll them in a Catholic school down there, St. Anne's, which is a great Catholic school in Naples, Florida. We found out when we got down there that St. Anne's is mandating the masks and they're defying the governor's orders. So they're following the governor's orders here.
Opposite, yeah.
They're defying them down in Florida. So I guess that begs the question, Mr. Bailey, whose orders are they following and who's truly pulling the strings?
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with the Catholic Church. I'm hearing that, and that has me very perplexed, because earlier they were sure standing up for our rights and the freedoms of this constitutional republic that we live in, and these freedoms of which the church has such an important and vital role of upholding. I do not know why they have caved so much.
So, our governor, J.B. Pritzker, is he benefiting from all this financially? I mean, is that really what this is boiling down to?
Well, that's just a personal opinion. I have absolutely no proof of that, but I'll go back to what I said in the very first place when you asked me what's driving all this: money.
Yeah, I mean, because again, I keep asking myself, to what end, right? So it's
Right.
Masks are mandatory. Now comes the vaccination in exchange for becoming unmasked, in exchange for going out to dinner, in exchange for going to the sporting event, in exchange for flying on an airplane. Well, To me, that sounds a lot different than the narrative we heard before, which was 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Right.
Look at how far we've came in
Yep.
just 18 months.
Yep. That's right.
So
That's right.
it's really scary, quite candidly. What I think I'm digging for, and what I think everyone at the event is digging for, is truth.
Yes.
We're digging for truth. I don't view this as a political issue.
Right.
It's a matter of us being provided with the truth and giving us back our freedom of
Right.
choice, so we can
Right.
take that truth and make the best choices we can make for our
Right.
families.
Right. And that's
How is
that.
that too much to ask?
Yep. Well, that's it. Truth. If we're looking for truth, the truth is we are free people. That's the truth, and we have to start acting like it. So it's time to stand up. And I back whenever I called Tom and decided to file this lawsuit against Governor Pritzker, I'm gonna tell you what. Um, I went to bed that night and prayed pretty hard because Governor Pritzker, we were being told that millions of people were going to die from this at any time, and I really did. I thought, what am I going to do over the next couple of days as this lawsuit makes news if millions of people die immediately from this? I'm going to be the biggest fool in the face of this earth. So I mean, I lived with that and wrestled with that, but deep down I knew that what I was doing was the right thing. I mean, let's go back 250 years ago. You've got a ragtag bunch of farmers and business people and patriots standing up against the greatest army in the world. What do you think they thought? What do you think the whole purpose was that? I mean, at any point in time, that Paul Revere's ride, he wasn't warning people that the British were coming. He was out looking for John Hancock and John Adams because the British were coming to look for them to hang him. And then they were hiding in a church somewhere. He was making his midnight ride looking for them and letting people know that the British are coming to look for these guys. We got to get them out of here and get them to safety. And that's our duty today. Nothing's changed. Our lives aren't on the long line. It's not as desperate yet as it was then. So let's stand up with the and do the right thing. Speak up, speak out, stand against this nonsense, and let these people know that no, we're not going to stand for this. This is not right.
Yeah, I mean, our society hasn't experienced tyranny, so we can't appreciate, like our founders did, what it means to be living in tyranny.
Right.
I think a lot of people are taking it for granted. They're being complacent. They're naive to the true force that stands behind all of this, which is happening. In my opinion, there's a bigger battle that's being fought right now beyond just the masking of the children in schools. And I have my opinions on what that could be. It's hard for people to digest that pill if they've never really sat back and to think about it.
Right.
However, there's certainly a bigger issue here at play.
Right.
One question I had written down too is, I'm learning a lot, by the way. I'm learning more than I ever thought I could about these House bills and the Senate and the House. And do you think there's going to be a shell bill in Senate that takes some of the language from House Bill 2789 to try to sneak in this authority?
Anything is possible. The gas tax bill was voted on 2 years ago too, and it was a simple bill to double the gas tax, and all of a sudden January 2020 comes around and we're realizing that license plates fees increased. We're realizing that police, municipalities, and sheriff's department lost funding to train their police officers. That overnight that fell upon them. It used to be the state reimbursed them. We found out many things, and guess what? That was all built in to the 3,000 plus pages of the gas tax bill. So absolutely anything is possible, and we've got to be ready for some of this stuff. I don't think that can happen. I think that would surely be caught. I think that if you want to talk about tyranny and you want to talk about people, you want to talk about an uprising, I think we would have good reason for something like that if something like that were to be written in. Now, with that being said, Governor Pritzker could go and ask ISB to write this into the rules. They did that before, because when you write it into the rules, then JCAR looks at that. Within JCAR, there's 6 Democrats and 6 Republicans, and you have to have a vote of 8 in order to in order to deny, any of the changes. So something like that could happen. Anything's possible. Back to my comment of power blinds. But I would be shocked to see that kind of behavior if something like that were to take place. I would be shocked, and I think that would be the end of it would actually be a blessing if they would attempt something like that. As most of this stuff, as bad as it is, you just have to kind of sit back and high five every now and then, just thinking, wow, this guy is such the idiot that he keeps doing these disastrous policies. People are getting sick of it. And Cindy and I are hearing that on the south side, the west side, downtown Chicago, in these hotbeds of these places where the people who are making these laws are elected. Their own people are growing weary of this.
People need to be educated. They need to get involved. They need to be actively looking at who they're voting for. I think that's what's happened for me. I'm paying more attention to this than ever before, and I'm not going to stop because I see what the consequences are of being asleep behind the wheel, and a lot of the other parents in my community, I believe, will be following my lead on that. So we'll kind of wrap up with a couple more questions, but one more on the school board and just the here and now, because I think everyone is yearning for kind of a here and now solution. Do you believe, my viewpoint is we have to hit those on the school board morally. We have to get them to make a moral commitment to do what's right, absent of whatever consequences they're afraid of.
Right.
And is that really what it boils down to, is getting them to make a moral decision? I mean, is that really what this is boiling down to?
Well, it really is. And so you've got a second reason to show up now, because as of Friday, Governor Pritzker signed into law SB 818, which offers a sex education courses from kindergarten all the way through a high school. I can tell you that in junior high, they are learning things that I had no idea. Each of the Republican legislators received a book from Illinois Right to Life. And I mean, some of you probably saw pictures. I didn't post any of the pictures. They were just drawings, but they were pornography. And you're learning terms of sexual activity and sexual tools, honestly, that I'd never heard of. I had to ask what some of this stuff meant. And, Senator Veli Valem and some of the sponsors of this bill, and even Governor Pritzker said, this is to protect the children. Well, protect them from what? Protect them from molestation and rape is what they're talking about. And so they believe that some of these learning about some of this stuff can help protect the children from bodily harm. I mean, this I don't know. It's perverted. It's all it is. So you have a reason now to show up to your school boards and say that so a school can opt out of this course. Interestingly enough, written into the bill, if you opt out of this course, then you opt out of all sexual education, health, period. You can't teach abstinence. You can't teach anything. So, and that's where we as people need to start going back to it within our families and our churches. Those are the places where we need to be teaching this stuff. We need to be teaching these things in our homes. There's some our public schools. There's no business for this in public schools. So you've got kind of a double duty. You can go back and make sure that your schools opt out of this disastrous bill. If they've refused to, you can opt your child out. It should be where the families are informed and you choose to opt your child in, but unfortunately you have to pull your child out of these classes. So that is allowed. So that's a good reason to reapproach your school board members and oh, by the way, what about this mask mandate? So no, do not give up. And I think from here on out, every monthly meeting, however many meetings, there needs to be a plan of action where parents are at these meetings in force and behaving respectfully. Because I'm here to tell you, when people call me up and chew me out and are rude, I'll hang up. I'm not going to listen to it. So if you're there at the board meetings, I understand you're mad. I understand the passionate, but you also have to be respectful. There's no doubt about that. You're in their meeting space. Yes, it's a public meeting. It's your time too. But if we're tactful about this, that's how we can create change.
Catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, right?
Thank you. Right there it is. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's my mission, is to keep a nonstop pressure on these school boards and to continue to mount more parents. So hopefully this group I've created goes from 500 to 1,000 to 2,000 to 4,000. My goal is to get 1 million in this group, because I believe we got to hit them morally. They
Yes.
have to feel a moral obligation as
Right.
people, as human
Right.
beings, as Americans. I think the logical side of it isn't working. We're going into every school board meeting and we're presenting all the
Right.
facts on masks and the science, and they're even denying children that have medical exemptions.
Right.
They're denying religious exemptions. So if they're gonna mandate masks against all logic, then what else can we do but to go in there with a moral argument,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
You can
That's right.
you can help save the state of Illinois morally by standing up for what's right. And yes, the consequences may be or may not be what ISB is threatening, but what's the worst of two evils?
That's awesome.
That's what I'm looking at is, okay, lose your status.
Thank you. That's what I'm at. Right. Stand
I'd
for.
rather lose everything I have than live in a place where I'm told what I
Right.
need to do in a free country.
Thank you. Proverbs 28:2. I love it. It says, when there is moral rot in a nation, its government topples easily, but wise and knowledgeable leaders bring stability. So hopefully out of all this, yourself and others who are listening and others who will join your cause, and I want to help you get to that million, the million members. That is awesome. Hopefully we will find many people who will be called, who maybe are right now being called to run for some of these positions, whether it's a library board or a park board or school board or anything in between.
That's the goal, is to find people who understand the philosophical values that we understand. They understand the fundamental values of our nation's founding. When all this began to happen about 18 months ago, really right at the beginning of 2020, I really started delving deep back into Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. I started studying Marxism. I
Yeah.
started having conversations with people who had fled communism. And I tried to educate myself on the foundation, because I feel like that should be the thing we all look back
Right.
to in times like these.
That's right.
And, of course, I know you believe this, that, all of our freedoms were gifted to us by our Creator.
Right.
And our founders put God above all man so that we could prevent, even if it meant that some of the founders were atheists, but yet
Right.
they understood the reasoning behind that, because absent a God, we kick the door wide open for tyranny.
That's right.
Right now, anything goes, just like the sexualization of our children, just like these atrocities that they're trying to teach these young children. So the question I have for everybody is, it's not just about the mask, it's about what's next. So if they can put masks on your children and they can force vaccines in your children's bodies, what else will they be doing to your children's bodies?
Right.
Is all of a sudden pedophilia going to be an acceptable practice in school? Are we going to give people a pass for doing weird and strange things to your children, and you have no authority to take action? I mean, I hate to talk radical here.
No, it's there. There was a bill passed. A school teacher could anybody could take a young child from age 8 to the pharmacy and get birth control. I don't know if without the parents' knowledge. I mean, this is grotesque. What is taking place, and why anyone would desire or craft a bill like that, I don't know.
Well, I don't think anybody really knows, but I think people have a feeling
Yes,
of
we
what's
do.
going on here. And so I think it's important that we just continue to unite. We continue to educate one another, really support each other too. I'm trying to give people encouragement, because if there's no encouragement and you're not feeling, there's no belief. That everything, in my opinion, has to start with belief. I started a business without 2 nickels to rub together. I was in a very bad place when I started my business, but I always believed in my heart that I was going to succeed. Whenever I've believed in something, I've achieved it.
Yep.
But as soon as people start to doubt and they put their head in the sand,
Right.
we're doomed.
Right.
So I appreciate you, being a part of this. And when I met you and I heard your story and I understood who you were as a person, I felt compelled, because, it really isn't about, it's important to me what policies, you have running through your mind, but really it's the person, right? It's the human being and their values that matter. And I think we've just elected far too many people who frankly have a little bit of an evil disposition. There's really no other
Right.
way to say it.
That's exactly right.
So I appreciate that. I appreciate you being here with me. I know our audience wanted to see you. I know you're a busy guy.
I appreciate what you're doing. I mean, this is awesome. And I want to get to know you better so that we can move forward, work together, and accomplish what you're talking about, because this is amazing. And the people in the audience, I cannot wait to get to know you more closer. And Cindy and I, you're going to see us all over the place. We had a fundraiser in Central Illinois scheduled about 2 months ago. So that's the reason we couldn't get there tonight. And as soon as this fundraiser is over, we will be headed up into your area, and we'll be spending all this next week up there. But as we my lawsuit and some of the antics that what the press calls it on some of these actions that we're taking when we stand up against this, because the left truly sees this as nonsense, or why they're just as blinded, they're just as passionate for this stuff as we are against it. And they look at us and they say, well, why wouldn't you? And it makes no sense. And
Tell me about it.
Well, a little over a year ago, I was being interviewed by one of the liberal press organizations up in the Chicagoland area, and that's exactly what the person said. He said, this is some of this stuff you do and the way you think. He said, it's kind of silly, isn't it? And I just said, well, I'm going to tell you something. Again, I go back to my history books because I think history is very important. And if I remember correctly, about 260 years ago, there were some growing men and women. They dressed up like Indians, and I think they got on a boat and they threw some tea in a river. And that's probably silly for the day as well, but let's look what that led to. And I'm not so sure that we're not chartering those same waters today. So friends, listen, stand strong, stand up, stand together. And we've got this inherent right in our hearts. We know the difference between right and wrong, and we don't have to kowtow and succumb to these whimsical laws and this nonsense they are propagating. Let's stand up against this stuff.
Well, I appreciate your passion. For those who are listening to this and watching this too, I appreciate how much work you're putting in. I mean, just from what little I'm doing around my regular day job, if you can't tell, I'm a little hoarse. It's exhausting.
Yeah, it is.
To keep up with this. And I know how hard you're working, all the obligations, all the traveling. It takes a man with energy or a woman with energy to be a leader too.
Yeah.
And that's what I look at as well, is how hard is this person working, and how hard are they willing to work to earn the right to be the leader of this state, for example. And we see how hard the other side's working, don't we?
Right.
As soon as our little group that we created, this event that we were hosting, as soon as it hit Capitol Fox, guess what we got hit with? Antifa, BLM, threats. I'm talking vicious threats. I'm talking people calling up to the venue. They had 80 phone calls in one day, threatening to follow the speakers home with hatchets. They were threatening riots. They were threatening people's lives if we show up there and we have our event. Why is it that hit Capitol Fox and the very next day, all kinds of tyranny is raining down on us?
Right.
Is there a connection there?
Right. Yep. Absolutely, there is. Yeah, I get that same kind of stuff. I'm 4 hours south of you, and I'll have been an elected official. I'll have the Secretary of State Police, or the state police from time to time. A couple of times in the past, they've called and said, "Hey, we've picked up this threat, and do you want us to set at the end of your drive? Do you want us to do something?" I'm like, no, you don't understand where I live and what I stand for. So you let those people come, and I'll deal with it. So this is, I don't know. Yeah, this is concerning what's being allowed. I've become real good friends with Juan Riesco with Nini's Deli downtown Chicago, and they faced a lot of this stuff several months ago and had to flee their business. And he's back, and he says they'll never flee again. His family's Cuban refugees, and a lot of these people, a lot of this, Cindy and I are up in the Polish community, the Romanians, the Hungarians, the Cubans. I mean, just on and on and on. I was talking with a family from Mexico sometime, and he was terribly, terribly passionate about his family and what the problems were in Mexico. And it was just like, and the comment with somebody with us said, "Well, if you're so passionate, why aren't you down there standing and fighting for that?" He says, "We can't fight down there. We have no guns. We have nothing to stand up against this with. We can't." So all these people have come to America with their ideas and values, and they're seeing the same happening that happened in their countries. And they're telling me this, what we're talking about right now, these other laws, these groups, these Antifas, Black Lives Matter, the same thing happened. And they stand, and a lot of these older people, they'll poke me in the chest and they'll say, I'm not fleeing again. So I don't know what we're headed to, but we've got to stand up against it.
Yeah, then they label you. Then you're labeled a white supremacist.
Right.
All of a sudden you're with the Proud Boys. You know what?
Right.
I wasn't even doing any of this with any of this in my innocent head. I never
Right.
thought, well, I'm planning an event to meet with all my friends and the parents
Right.
in the community just to talk about what's going on. Everyone's concerned. I wasn't even thinking about politics. Yes, I have my views, but I never would have thought in a million years that we'd be attacked so quickly. And it really didn't start until it hit Springfield, which
Right.
is really ironic. And so that's quite scary because I think that's unprecedented. In the past, politics, I'm sure they were dirty, but never was it like where people are being threatened because they
Right.
want to share and how fascist is it? So you're anti-fascist, but then you're displaying fascist behavior. You mentioned hypocrisy. I mean, it doesn't get much more hypocritical than that.
Right.
I'm standing up just as much for them as I am myself, right? Because what I'm
Right.
saying is, I want my views and my beliefs and my freedom to assemble, my First Amendment rights. I want to have those rights.
Right.
Well, if I believe that firmly that I deserve those rights, then I have to believe that they deserve those rights as well. They take for granted that if they live in a country that is communist, they're not going to have the right to do what they're doing right now.
Correct.
Whatever that is, they're down in their basement,
Yep. Correct.
enjoying the
I
fun
know.
of
You're right.
antagonizing people. Antifa, BLM, you're not going to have the right to do what you're doing either. We're all going to be laying in a ditch looking at each other going, what the heck were we doing fighting?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I'm trying to unite people.
Yeah, and you are. Thank you for what you're doing, because it's exactly what's going to happen out of what you're doing. I believe that's what's going to happen. I believe the world, the state is desperate for bold and courageous leadership. People have forgot what it means because far too many people just bow down to the pressures that be. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all these other groups come along and people flee, they hide, they run. It's time to stop running.
Yeah, we have to have courage. And I tell you what, that's the other thing I'm trying to tell people in this group is have courage. Don't be afraid. People are so fearful. There's two types of fear, and then we can wrap up. And I'm sure we'll pare this down when we edit this, but
That's awesome.
we're just talking now.
Yes.
I see two types of fear. You have people who are afraid to go back out into the world. They're afraid to take their mask off and go back to work. They've been paralyzed by the fear of the virus. And then you have another group over here that wants to live free, but they're living in fear because they're afraid to speak out about how they feel. They're
Right.
afraid to fight back against it because they're going to be labeled, judged. They're going to be thrown into a group, all these identity politics. And I'm probably losing friends over this too, because I'm coming out and I'm vocal now about what I believe. And I'm seeing that I'm losing friends. I'm not really losing friends. I'm identifying who is a friend to begin with,
That's
right? And who I truly want to stand beside. But Jesus would also ask for us to pray for these people, wouldn't he?
That's right.
I mean, at the end of the
That's
day,
right. That's what
we
we
got to
do.
embrace. I want to embrace these people. I feel like saying to them, BLM, Antifa, LGBTQ, I don't care what you are.
Right.
You can come over to my house and sit with me at my bar. We can have a drink. And I promise you, within 10 minutes, we're going to get along pretty good.
Right.
And we're not going to hate each other.
That's right.
We might have some differences, but
Yep.
I think when you boil it down, there's probably only a small percentage of people who just want anarchy, that want to see everything burn.
Right.
They just are evil, and that's not going to change.
Right.
But I do believe the majority of people, even those people who are jumping on the bandwagon of some of these groups, if you were really to break them down, they don't want what it is they're inviting.
Right. Right. And I think something else we don't know or quite comprehend or understand, the money that might be behind this, because there's always people, there's factions, there's purpose behind these movements of power. And, I don't understand. I can't pinpoint any of that. But when I see buses rolling up with loads of people coming in and out of these, events, that takes money to do that. So, there's, again, power and control.
Well, let's hope the will of the people outweighs the money that's backing up all this wild stuff.
That's
Because
right.
at
All
the
we
end of the
gotta do
day,
is stand up and stand firm and not budge. You nailed it, man.
those who sacrifice freedom for security deserve
Yes.
neither. Right?
That's right. That's right.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate the time. I know that this was different.
No,
But
this is awesome. This is,
I'm sure I could sit and talk to you for hours.
well,
Because,
we're gonna get up there. We're up there. Like I said, we're up there all this week, and we're gonna be up there a lot. We've rented an apartment in the North Aurora, so we're gonna be kind of setting it up and calling it our northern home for a while. But no, Cindy and I, we'll holler at you sometime and try to cut out a time to come by and have dinner with you and just talk one-on-one about some of this stuff, because you don't you dare think that what you're trying to run from, maybe a political run or something, is too far away down the road, because we have got to stand up, and it's got to be now. But what you're doing now, what you're doing with your time, with your business, a lot of people won't do that, because just for the exact reasons
right.
that you mentioned, you all of a sudden you've thrown yourself on the radar. And the one thing this goofballs, that Capital Facts, that Rich Miller, I mean, he's a complete moron. And I won't ever, I will talk about liberal blogs. Very rarely will I even mention the name, because I don't want people to go and look it up and think this is great, subscribe to it, because it's nonsense. So I got into it with WCIA, with one of the liberal Springfield reporters at the state fair last week, and just shut him down. He wanted to know why I wouldn't answer his question. I said, I'm sick and tired of you mixing my words up, and until I see a change, then absolutely not. I'm not going to talk with you.
Well, and if these publications are triggering anarchy, so if that's triggering a guy like me, who's just a businessman in the local community, family man, get along with everybody. I mean, I'm from Flint, Michigan. So I played on a basketball team one year between my junior and senior year. I left my predominantly white basketball team to play with a team called the Brotherhood.
Wow.
I was the only white guy on the team. I was the only white guy in the league. Well, guess what? I wanted to play with a higher level of competition.
Right.
They asked me to play. They said, will you play with us? Because we played against them and we whooped their butt, because I scored 37 points in the game. And they asked me, awesome. And I hated my coach. I hated my high school coach. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll play with you. I was the only white guy in the league. And I mean, these guys became very good friends of mine. I know what it's like to see what their world looks like, and I'm just that kind of a guy. I get along with all kinds of people. I don't judge people until I get to know them. And then I might say, okay, I don't like this person, but it doesn't have anything to do with their appearance. So it's really sad to think that someone could throw an article into Capital Fox about a group that I'm organizing, and I'm immediately labeled as a white supremacist, a member of the Proud Boys. I'm being threatened. How can a publication, or wherever it is the money is coming from to fuel that, even exist in a country where there's law and order?
Good. That's awesome.
Should they be held accountable, because they are indirectly or directly?
That is correct.
They're indirectly or directly threatening me.
Yep.
And using their affiliation as a weapon, no differently than if they show up to my front door right now and pointed a gun to my head.
Right. Nope. That's right. And that's going to be a very important.
How do they operate beyond reproach?
Right. And that's so, that's what a governor that's what a governor can do. He can communicate to the people. He can talk about this stuff. He can raise awareness so that we can turn the good people, put them to work, to pushing back against some of this stuff. So that's going to be a key point with my administration, to knock down these resistance and these walls that exist, and get the church involved, and make sure that, as you talked about, that we bring brotherly love back in. We see each other as someone, each of us created, individually by our Creator, and uniquely gifted, instead of us so different as our government is trying to define us.
I just feel like saying, whoa, I'm fighting for your beliefs and your views.
You
and your
are.
freedom.
That's right.
No different than I'm my own, within the boundaries of the law.
Right.
So as long as we're in the boundaries of the law, I'm fighting just as much for these other people,
That is correct,
as I am for myself. Yeah. And so that's the thing that has me miffed. I just think it's got to be an educational, maybe they just have to be educated on the fact that, again, they don't want what's coming, what they're inviting. I talk to these people who've fled communism. They say, Nick, the first thing we noticed was that the media began to control the minds of the people.
Yep.
Propaganda began to control the way people think, and people became brainwashed. And now all of a sudden comes the division, right? If we can create enough division, enough chaos. So we're all fighting this battle amongst each other, while there's a bigger war that's being waged against all of us.
Yep. That's exactly right.
So I'm just, I don't know where we go from here. I know it starts with changing our elected officials.
Yep.
hopefully we can get there in time.
Well, we've got a year and a half. I mean, out of end time, we've got a year and a half. So as goes Illinois in 2022, so goes our nation. I strongly believe that. I don't think there's, I don't think there's 2022 is it. It's that important. So we have
I was gonna
another
ask, so
4 years of
you
Pritzker. It's
see that as
gone.
a timetable.
I do.
Do you think
I
we have
do.
enough time to get there without a bunch of, who knows, chaos
Yeah.
breaking,
Yeah,
like
we're right on the
Australia?
cusp. Yeah, we've got people all over the state. You've got people right now in your meeting tonight that have never been to a political event. You got people there that have never voted. You've got people there that have voted for Governor Pritzker 2 years ago, thinking that that change was right. You've got people there that probably voted for Obama, thinking, yeah, everything's messed up, because Republicans have for the most part, lost their way as well. Everything's all messed up. We need bold and courageous leadership, and that's what I've stood up against a lot of this nonsense over the past 3 years as being a state representative and now a senator. And that's the hunger. That's why, we're being lifted up, is because people are seeing something different and they're attracted to it. And they're attracted to the message. You're offering the same kind of message. So we unite and we get to work. You know what hard work's like. I know what hard work's like. People in your audience know what hard work's like. We got a year and a half. That's plenty of time. And once we in January of 2023, we hit the ground running. We have plans ready to go. This isn't a popularity contest. This isn't another trophy to put on the wall. Hey, look at me, I'm a governor. This is about some serious work. The same, my farm, we've had bad years, 2 years in a row, and many times, when we were financially, like, we have got to make some changes. This year, we've got to do something, or we're done. And many people out
Yeah.
there in business, you experience those times. So you formulate plans, you work hard, and by the grace of God, you accomplish what you need to accomplish. And that's what we face here in state government. And that's the kind of person I am. It's the kind of person you are. God's bringing these people together in our life, whether it's been church leadership, school board, community leadership, on the farm, in the family. God's always brought the people together at the right time. Uniquely gifted. We get to work, we get the job done. And I think we can do this in 2022, get the election won, begin a road of recovery in 23. And then I think that the presidential elections, we can create change, shape change all across this state from coast to coast. I truly believe that's going to happen, because there is too many people coming out of the woodworks, looking for hope, that are attracted to our message. Yeah, it's going to happen.
We got to go back to the old slogan: united we stand, divided we fall.
Yes, that's it.
Quite candidly, I mean, that could
it.
be something I theme my whole group around, because
Yes,
that's really what it's about. It's
exactly.
about united we stand, divided we fall. I'm not going to instantly change anyone's mind, so why not try to influence them to understand what I mean when I say united
Right.
we stand, divided we fall?
Right. Awesome. Yep.
So, well, I'm glad that we had this discussion. I got to know you better through this
Well,
discussion, but I certainly
yeah, no,
welcome you
didn't get a
anytime.
lot of time to visit with you on the boat. I'm sorry about that, but I look forward to. I'm gonna bring Cindy. I want to sit down and come by, and we'll connect with you sometime and schedule a time where we can come and you're free, and just sit down with you and have a little deeper discussion and talk about the nuts and bolts. And I especially want to hear about how the meeting goes tonight. So
I will. I'll let you know. And when you drive by, you'll know where my house is. You'll see the big Darren Bailey for governor sign out front.
bless you. Okay. All right.